Hello, and thank you so much for joining me here on So Checks. Today is going to be an episode of Bibliofancy with a review of Inside the Mirror Box, Spells and Theory for All Practitioners by Ray Baker. This is the only book on the subject of mirror boxes that I could find. If there are more, I haven't found them. I loved it. So one cute thing to note is the picture on the cover is of a digital camera taking a photograph. It was a timer set inside of a mirror box with glow-in-the-dark stars. The author wanted to use a picture from an artist to do a whole exhibition with pictures from inside a box of mirrors, but they couldn't get permission to use it for the cover, so they recreated it themselves. But it gives the idea of being inside the mirror box and the reflections and refractions of all the pictures just all around. So for those who don't know what a mirror box is or what it's for, I will say you can do it in two ways mentioned here and with multiple boxes, which is something I hadn't really thought of. This book was very thorough, and I don't have that many complaints with this book, actually. I love this book. It is now in my top 5 witchy books. 2 of the others being Your Fairy Magic by Halo Quinn, and the other being S. Connolly's Hexes, Curses, and Crossing. There's a few more, but of course, top 5. Just mention the top 3, the important ones. This is now 1. Not like number 1, but it's one of them. They're not numbered, really. It's just kind of like a conglomeration of my favorites. Well, okay. So this book tells you about how to make mirror boxes. Everything from how to do tools, alternative, items. One of the things I really liked is it said, okay, if you can't just buy mirrors, like at the craft store, or you can buy the little tiny mirrors like you use for grout and put them all in a box. You could also just buy 6 mirrors and tape them to the inside of a box. Or what they suggested is using duct tape to tape the box together, because that makes it easier to deconstruct the whole thing. They even mentioned if you don't have access to it or you need it to be more discreet, just getting a compact mirror. As long as the image of the target or the name paper of the target is facing the mirror, you're good. And I like that. So minimalist, so accessible. That is it right there. I love that. One of the things that they bring up is that they didn't want anyone to get mad at them. So they changed, if they made a spell for this person harassed this person, or this person was abusing or stalking this person, they changed the relationships, the genders, the sex, the everything, so that they couldn't, figure out who it is. And if they did think that's who they were, then they'd be like, well, guess, fuck your life. I said it's not you, so if you feel offended, I guess you shouldn't have messed with me. And I'm like, you know what? Yes, that's how it should be. This also brought up something. This is when I fell in love with this book. So on page 7, that's how long it takes. I can fall in love on the first page. I can fall in love on the last page. But if I fall in love early, then it's definitely a fave. So by page 7, they explained to me, which I stated in my views of God, how I could never imagine being an atheist. This is pretty close to what I could imagine. And I actually thank them so much for giving me that image. You'll also find that the majority of the spells in this book don't contain names of gods or goddesses. The main reason for this is that I don't believe in God. I believe that the different gods and goddesses throughout the world's religions are simply personifications of different natural forces and energies that the practitioner attempts to access during a working. So when they, as I mentioned in here, because they do have one spell specifically, they love La Santa Muerte, which I adore La Santa Muerte too, so it's all right, yes, fair. They don't really believe that La Santa Muerte reaches her bony finger down and interferes in the magic. They believe that La Santa Muerte as a image calls forth a stronger, more concrete visualization of the energy that they want to imbue into their magic. So calling forth the image of La Santa Muerte in the case in the book, she wants that unbiased judgment and the proper hand of justice to protect those that are in danger, but also serve justice to the scumbag guy in the book. So she uses La Santa Muerte mentioned, but she doesn't actually believe La Santa Muerte is a entity that is separate. It's just a type of energy that she wants access, and it's such a very particular type of energy that she uses that deific entity by name. But they do not believe they're an individual deity. And I love this. I love this concept. It's like that makes a lot of sense, and I do appreciate it so much. So this book is just fantastic on the fact that they're not falling under the rule of 3 or karma, which I don't think I believe in karma. Because karma gives the idea that you're getting punished for something you did in your last life that you probably don't have any idea about in this life. And statistically speaking, you're more likely to be a poor, battered, underappreciated slave, servant, or working class individual than you are to be a rich, wealthy, in charge individual. You're not going to be. How often are you going to reincarnate as a white man who owns something that makes him money so he doesn't do a damn thing? How often are you going to be reincarnated as a LGBT woman or a trans woman or a person of color or a native individual? How often are you going to be someone who's getting the shit kicked out of them? There's 2 kinds of people in this world, only 2. There's one staying put in his proper place, and there's one with his foot in the other one's face. It's yeah, I don't think karma would exist in this case, because it's statistically speaking, how many times are you, you're never going to just, upgrade. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a downgrade to become an animal. That seems like a better situation. I think animals got it a lot better. They don't have the same existential crisis that humans do. I don't know. So the fact that, I know this is a tangent, but the whole fact that they don't bring up this whole they don't harp on it. They don't be oh no, don't fight back. No, bitch hit me, I'm gonna hit him back. I don't just let someone beat me down. I defend myself. And I like that. That's chapter 2 is white or black magic. It's a gray area, and the fact that that very few things in human nature are black and white, because it is very true. This just wholly brings in the idea of what is justified versus what is black magic, and being peaceful versus harmless, because there is a difference between I can't hit you and I'm just not hitting you. Oh, Lord. The fact that they make sure to explain to you, you're allowed to defend yourself. And if doing it in a mundane way doesn't work, which they say, please use the mundane way. Don't use magic for everything, which is yes. Then they move on to be then you can do some magic. And if it's justified, it's justified. And some witches who are more love and light and don't really like to hit back will even say that a mirror box is closer to being the safest defense for white magic users as you can do, because you're reflecting back on someone their negative energies, or you're reflecting off of them the negative energy that they put out. So to describe the use of this magical tool, as they do in the book, it can be constructed in 2 basic ways. One being where the mirrors are facing inwards. When the mirrors are facing inwards, they're going to reflect onto you something. So if you trap a negative individual inside the box with the mirrors facing them, it's like they're in a cage and their negativity is going to attack them. So whatever they put out, they're going to get back, at least times all the insides of the box. if you put them inside a box and put positive, like, affirmations and spell work into it to reflect their positive traits onto them, it's going to reflect the positive. So you put yourself in a box and put, I am beautiful, I am loved, I am happy. And then you will reflect these things into yourself and believe them more openly. If you put yourself in a box and put, I am confident, you will increase your confidence. If you put yourself in the box and face the mirrors outward, and you put something like your anxiety, and you try to like shoot your anxiety out, you can get rid of your anxiety. If you put someone inside of the box with positivity and put the negativity on the outside to push the negative out and reflect it off of them. The best way to describe the mirrors on the outside, so facing out with you in the dark, the best way that I've seen is to protect someone or to isolate them, whether it be to protect or isolate them from a characteristic or a trait or from another individual. This is where a really interesting idea that I hadn't thought of while reading this book, or until reading this book, which was using more than one box. Say you put one person in one box, mirrors out, and another person in another box, mirrors out. And you slowly, over the course of the spell work over many days, push the boxes farther apart to help isolate them. Be this to help end an argument between two people, to break up two people who are dating, to separate two friends, or to give yourself distance. Say you're in an abusive relationship and you want someone to be safe and somebody to cool off and move away. And you could slowly separate them. And they're isolated in their box to offer protection. That doesn't mean you shouldn't still work on it in the mundane, in the lifetime IRL, but it does give you more of a magical outlet to offer protection that's not just visualizing, and that's using a different tool. It is a very advanced tool, and the author said it takes some playing around with. So one of the things that I really liked with the author is they talked about the issue with the box is stagnation. So if you just leave it on your altar and don't touch it, it's not like other spell work. Which, if you put offerings on your altar, you know not to leave a bowl of water full of dead flies on the altar. You know that once the flowers have died, you should either reappropriate them or get fresh flowers. You don't leave molding food on the altar. You take it off and replace it with something better, something fresh, something new, and not just kind of lacking respect. You have to give it your attention. It's the same thing with the magical mirror box, which I will be doing a video on constructing a mirror box. So don't worry. We will do this together, you guys. You need to take the box and keep giving it your attention. The way the author describes it is that anytime it draws your attention, say you see it or you just feel called to it, take the box and shake it. Now, if you have personal concerns or personal connected items, so like hair, blood, say they're heavier items, like an example given in the book, say you had a thief come into your home and you put the items that they have touched but didn't take inside the box. You know, to reflect their evil deeds onto them. A good example in the book is putting someone in the mirror box so that all the money that they make off the items that are stolen is cursed. Any item they buy with that money is cursed. Anything that they've stolen that they keep is cursed. Anything that they gain from what they stole will cause them misfortune and just stress and terror and just harass them until they turn themselves in or are caught. And in this case, the individual did get caught with so much evidence on them that they helped everyone who had been affected by this little group of thieves and reflected all this negativity back onto them. However, if the item you put inside the box is too heavy, you can't shake it. Which, of course, it's like any spell. You take a spell jar and you just shake it when you need to. If you can't just shake it because it's got something heavy in it, remember, this is glass. This is a fragile item. You can just tap it. Really easy, really gentle. And I like that. I like that the author took the time to explain if you have something that will break the glass, don't do it. And they give you another option. They even give the most low effort option, not even just the compact, because maybe you're a man who is nervous about having a mirror compact or makeup compact, and you feel it would be too emasculating, like demasculate. How do you say emasculate? There we go. And you don't want to carry that around with you. Okay. Put your name paper and personal concern in tinfoil and ball it up. Now, I don't know how you could do this with another item where you are wrapping it around so it reflects out, but that's a really good idea, even as it is, in its most simple form, just using tinfoil. And most people have this in their home, so if you're not out of the broom closet, it's possible. And I love that. This book talks about constructing the box from any materials. It also talks about deconstructing the box and how to know when to break it apart. Not a lot of books talk about what you do when your spell work is done, or how do you know it's done. Not just, oh, it manifested in like real life, it's done. No, this is, it manifested magically or in a very mundane way, and you need to stop. If it becomes stagnant and you're not shaking it doesn't work, tapping it doesn't work, maybe you need to deconstruct it, give it a breath so that the universe and the individual can just like breathe and then go back at it. Because if you do it for too much, they're going to have their defenses up and they'll be unable to like succumb to the magic, or in the case like listed, the energy will just get crossed with something else. Maybe you need to start over, start fresh, or use like a more like condensed idea. Go back to the drawing board. It also talks about how if you're shaking the box and maybe it falls off your altar, or you drop it and it breaks, that's the universe telling you to stop. And I think that's very important because most people don't know when to stop, or they think they know when to stop and they don't. And so the fact that the author even says, like, if it breaks, maybe you're clumsy, but maybe you need to stop. I like that. I like that the author took the time to express how the mirror box is very complex and will cause you to mess up, because you're not going to think about where the reflections are going or how many people are going to be affected by the reflections. It's a very beautiful book. It's very visually like telling. Like, it has the most like, okay, so it has a very dense correspondences for constructing your box. Like, it goes through breaking spiritual blocks and addictions. It talks about what ways the mirror should face to do one, being inward, to place appropriate restrictions on yourself concerning food, alcohol, drug use, whatever. Outward, to banish the desire to continue using an addictive substance or acting on an addictive habit. So you can do either construction, like method of a box, for the same thing, but it's just the approach, the way you look at it. For confidence and success, inward, to make the target shine brighter with good qualities, or outward, to banish negative or unwanted habits. So, I am confident, or I am shy, and get, shoot it away. And it goes through so many. Like, every page is just list after list after list. It goes through with how the mirror should face, colors used, herbs to use, the day, the planet, the moon phase, the elements, stones, and additional symbols. A good example being personal growth and empowerment, using symbols like blooming flowers, clockwise spirals, closed fists, infinity symbols, lightning bolts, Nile River goddess, oak trees, owls, pinnacles, 7-point stars, suns, and yin yang. And it goes on and on. It is just a very dense chapter that's beautiful. It even gives you tips on writing your own spell work. However, it blatantly states this is not a beginner book. It is for a more moderate, understanding practitioner. It is not a introductory book. It's an introductory to an advanced tool. So while it does tell you how to write your own spell work and adding power to your spells, charging, it isn't highly devoted to these very simple tasks. It just briefly overviews them. So going on, it talks about the ways that you raise energy being very important, bringing up music. It brings up the ways you can focus your magic by asking yourself if it's worth it, if it's long term, if there's a mundane way to do it. Like, it goes on and on and on about preparation and knowing your motives so that you can go somewhere with it. It goes over the kinema, the little number squares with the letters. It goes over the symbols, how you can use those, drawing them on your mirror box. And it gives some really good spells. It actually gives some spells in English and Spanish, because it wants you to be comfortable saying it if you don't speak Spanish, but it also wants to give it to you if you want to speak it, because to them it meant more to use it in Spanish. And it was so funny. It was like, may they choke on the shit that they talk. Oh, damn. That was good. That spell was good. Chills. Then you have, like, the point they point out, to break bad habits and addictions, an abusive relationship is just an addiction. You're addicted to their love. And they talk about, like, you need to banish that addiction. You need to reflect off that, like, need for them. And I think that's very important to, like, give these, like, descriptions. Because while, yes, you could just focus on the one partner that's a problem or the other partner, but also focus on the fact that you're there. You have to get out. So you have to break that addiction yourself, and you have to be the one to leave. And I don't know, the fact that they pointed this out in this little spell work, just, I loved it. I love this book so much. They talk about, in most of their spells, it's very long spell work, like 3 or 4 pages minimum, just of the, like, words. But one of the things that I loved is the acknowledgement of the herbs that you're using. So if you're using an herb and you're incorporating it into your box, they state, sacred herb, breathe life into my spell, activate my protective force field. And onward, they talk. But I really enjoyed the way that they honored the herb. It reminded me of the Native American act of honoring the herb, like honoring the plants that you're using in your spell work. You ask the plant's permission if it wants to work with you. And I really loved this animism. It made me very happy to see it in the spell work, like actively, like, hello, thank you for being present. They did this with the stone. Thank you, stone. Thank you, crystal. Thank you for being present. Thank you for helping me. Please do my bidding, do my work. Help me. And I'm like, yes, I like this. There's also a really cute meditation about visualizing a star of white light. So it's the basic meditation of forming a shield where you visualize a white light, except they want you to imagine that you are standing in a box emitting this white light, and it reflects back and becomes more and more powerful with each reflection. And I really like this meditation, both in its short and long form, which they included. A nice touch, by the way. The only real complaint I had with this book was when talking about how to dispose of your spell work. They talk about putting sea salt in the ground and then putting the glass in the ground, like the glass of the mirror in the ground, and burying it. And I'm like, I'm not gonna bury my mirrors, because, like, they talk about, like, burying it near, like, in a hole in the tree or near a river, and I'm like, okay, no. Because, one, especially if it's in somewhere that's going to get washed out or be interacted with like, wildlife, what if it gets, like, dug up or if it gets like sloshed out and someone steps on it. There's glass. Also, I don't want to put salt in the ground. Like, I know it's sea salt, but like, I mean, it may be sea salt, so it's natural, but I mean, if you're in a freshwater area, they're not going to have that type of like salt in the environment. That's I don't want to introduce something that's not necessary to the environment. That's not a good thing. And so that's one thing I did notice was they were like, yeah, let's just bury this glass and tape, you know, in the ground. Or they did retract it at one point, stating like, properly dispose of something if it's toxic, but like you could put herbs and dirt in the ground and that's fine. And I'm like, but you want them to put sea salt or bury the box altogether? And I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that because you're introducing something to the environment that shouldn't be there. Even if you do plan to go back and get it, I don't feel comfortable with that. And that was my only real complaint. However, everything else is just absolutely like powerful. They give you like a ritual to like ritually take apart the box, because while the physical taking apart the box is important, you also need to take care of the energy of the box, and pointing that out is really important because most people will just be like, I'm disposing of my spell work. I do something really simple where I'm just, get rid of it in the proper way, so I get rid of all the pieces, but I'll also be like, all right, thank you, or like, all right, you're good, you ain't got to do anything anymore, or I kind of mentally process it. And that's just kind of one of the ways that you can work through it. One thing I did like also was the recipe for Psychic Seer's Mirror Wash, which is really simple. It's a half cup vodka or 80% rubbing alcohol, 1 teaspoon of mugwort, 1 teaspoon of lavender flowers, and a piece of amethyst. Not to be ingested, and it should be discarded after a year and remade. It takes like a few weeks to make. Yeah, so it takes like a week to make. And they want you to like infuse it in the alcohol and then like discard the excess herbs. Although I really like it when it has the herbs, but since they want you to put it in a little spritz bottle, they want it to be able to not get clogged up. I absolutely love this, and the whole like overall act of using the whole ritual for making the sear wash and the whole like process, it was really beautiful to me, and it really resonated with, there was this poem that a friend of mine had given to me, that one of their friends wrote, and it was a scrying poem. The mountains tall and snowy, the water pure and blue, the fog thick and purple, a portal from me to you. The channel is now open, the path is now seen. Clear the way by night or day. Now show me what I am meant to see. And so like the whole process of making the seer's wash so that you can use the mirror box or a use of mirrors, specifically black mirrors or a scrying mirror, to divine, whether you're divining to use the box or you're divining to see how the box is going to work, using the wash to help see how your box might manifest. An example is they pictured their friend showing a flash drive to people at a party and making fun of them. In reality, they were talking about the book the author was writing, this book, I believe, and making fun of the author to people behind their back. And they found out by exposing their truth through a spell they included in here with the mirror box. They used the seer wash and scrying to help them get this image later in a dream, because they mentioned that scrying being a very difficult task, you don't always see it immediately. Sometimes you later see the images in a dream or in correspondences in real life. You just have to be looking for it. That the mirror is the first conduit, like is the first connection for you to see it, but if you can't see it there, it will find a way to get that energy to you once you've accessed it. And that was brought up towards the end because divination is a big part of doing spell work, knowing when to do it, when not to do it, and when, like, you need to change things up. So that is one thing that I absolutely adored. And they express how much they want this book to help others. I feel that the strongest message my work carries is that you don't have to lie down and take it when people treat you poorly, take advantage of you, or take what's rightfully yours. Probably my biggest hope for this book is that my fellow practitioners will be able to further expand on the spells and information that I've provided. I'm confident that my book will serve as the foundation that mirror box magic continues to grow on from this point forward. Just as I was able to develop the 2 spells I first learned into an entire system of magic, I want to see how far other witches can take what I've given them here. I want to see what other spells are inspired by the ones I've written. I want to see new and even more creative ways that other witches use the mirror box to solve problems that I haven't thought of yet. And I love that. They just want to inspire you. While these spells are very useful and doable as they are, they tell you, like, you can change it to fit you. It needs to be you, because the more powerful, like, the more you resonate with it, the more powerful it's going to be. And yes, just yes. Love this book. If you haven't thought about reading it, please do. It's like maybe like $10 or $15. It's not a lot. Please do. Love it, love it, love it. So, if you enjoyed this review, please let me know in the comments below. If you've read it, what did you think? If you want to read it, tell me. Have you ever used the mirror box? Do you even know what a mirror box is? Do you think you know what it is? Because I told you. I will be posting a video about constructing one. I also am going to post a kind of walkthrough of some spell work that I have with it. And I will link those in the description once they're public. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching me here on So Stitch X with Bibliofancy and Inside the Mirror Box, Spells in Theory for All Practitioners by Ray Baker. Alrighty. Have a wicked evening, and I hope to see you here next time on So Stitch X. Bye!